things, there was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can remember your name, because there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
You know, if I were a jockey, and I'm about the right size to be, that's the name I would give my horse. A horse with no name. It was on this day in 1972 that America began a 3-week run at number 1 on the U.S. singles chart with their debut hit, Horse with No Name. The group would go on to score another 8 top 40 hits in the U.S. during the 1970s. America and Horse with No Name, number 1 on this day in 1972, to start our show on this Tuesday morning. This day is the 25th of March, 2025. Welcome to the program. Thank you very much for spending some of your time with us. It is most appreciated. It's the most valuable commodity that you have, don't you know? You do know this, and we love that you spend some of it with us every day. Hopefully, you get rewarded for that. How do I know an election campaign is underway? Well, because my inbox filled up yesterday with exactly what you would expect on the first full day of a federal election campaign. I love that guest you had on. He brings such great perspective on politics, and I want to hear more from him. How can I hear more from that guy whose perspective I enjoy so much? And then the other email, I can't believe you have somebody like that on your show and you didn't challenge him and you were so disrespectful to the leader of this particular party. And you know you're hitting the sweet spot, or you know that you, as our listener, are engaged in what's going on. You have your political stripe, you wear it proudly, and that's fine. We are here to bring you ideas and perspectives that perhaps you had not otherwise thought of. And by the way, if you would like to share your perspective, political or otherwise, on this show, you know that we are the most interactive radio program anywhere in this region. Phone lines open the minute we begin our show every day at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We just finished a federal Liberal leadership campaign before that new Liberal leader and temporarily Prime Minister, Mark Carney, asked that Parliament be dissolved so this election campaign could begin. And there was concern over foreign interference in that leadership campaign. Well, thank you to Canada's national newspaper for letting us know on the front page this morning, agents of India allegedly backed Poilievre's leadership bid in an attempt to gain influence. According to CSIS, Canada's spy agency, the leader himself, Pierre Poilievre, was unaware of this meddling, but there was allegedly that interference in an attempt to gain influence during the Conservative leadership campaign that led to Pierre Poilievre's ascension to the leadership of the party. Foreign interference and bad actors from other states are something that we must continue to worry about as we try to have full and fair elections right here in Canada. Let's get to your 5 things, your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. Number 1, hundreds showed up to a Catholic school board meeting last night to protest a motion that would allow only the Canadian, Ontario, or school board flags to be flown at Catholic schools in our region. The motion would mean no pride flag or pride symbols inside or outside the schools. The motion comes to a vote at the Catholic School Board on April the 28th. Number 2, another day of bus delays as striking regional workers picket outside the Transit Operations Centre on Strasbourg Road. The strike by more than 200 workers now into a 4th week, and there ain't no end in sight. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the city of Waterloo has reached a settlement with investors in a 3-tower development at Weber and Bridgeport. The proposal calls for towers ranging from 22 to 25 stories, which is higher and more dense than current zoning in the city allows. A meeting with a provincial tribunal is set for next week to confirm the settlement. Details have not been disclosed. Number 4, Liberal leader Mark Carney is in Halifax today as the election campaign moves into its second full day. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre here in Ontario, he'll hold a news conference in Vaughan this morning. And NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is set to make an announcement in Toronto before holding a campaign event and attending a CUPE conference this afternoon. Singh will be in Hamilton tonight. And the Green Party co-leaders will be in Quebec and British Columbia. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the federal Liberals are off to a hot start on this third day of the federal election campaign. A poll conducted by Leger for the Canadian Press suggests 44% of decided voters will vote Liberal on April the 28th. That's a 2-point jump for the Liberals since last week and a 1-point drop for the Conservatives. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. If you were listening to the show yesterday, you might have heard Mike's call. And Mike was a little bit disappointed with the Conservative Riding Association, of which he is a member, because Mike uncovered some shenanigans in the riding. And since he brought it to our attention on the show, I've looked into it a little bit further, and shenanigans indeed. Will explain what's going on and maybe get your thoughts on it. Because I, for one, am incredibly disappointed, but this isn't the first time. It won't be the last time. We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Our federal election campaign has only just begun. And already shenanigans, I tell you, shenanigans in the riding of Waterloo. We can thank one of you, Mike, one of our regular listeners and somewhat regular callers to the show as well. And Mike called yesterday to tip us off to the goings-on in Waterloo, where he's a member of the Conservative Riding Association. If you missed Mike's call, here's what he had to say on the show yesterday.
I'd like to share with you a note that I got recently from the Waterloo Conservative Association. It's from Val Neekman, and I've just learned from Val that the Conservatives have decided to cancel their nomination meeting, and they parachuted a candidate in. So the guys from Milton, Burlington area, I think we have enough qualified people in our Waterloo region to have local representation from all parties. And I'm a little concerned about that parachuting nonsense by the leader.
Parachuting nonsense, Mike calls it, and I have a difficult time disagreeing with that characterization. There are 338 seats federally. Surely we can find 338 highly qualified people who are interested in running for our party. Can't we? I said something similar during the provincial election campaign and the 124 seats here in Ontario. Surely to goodness, we can find strong enough candidates that they're not dropping out at the last minute and endorsing an opponent or some such thing, right? Like, are we just running candidates so that we have a candidate in every riding, or are we running candidates with an honest to goodness chance of winning, who really do embody what we value as a political party? And after what we saw in the provincial campaign, I'm a little bit less sure of that. And frankly, I find it a little concerning. But what Mike shared with us yesterday from Waterloo, Val Neekman's name may ring familiar with you because Val ran for mayor of Kitchener in the municipal election back in 2022. But what he's been doing for the last number of years is what you might call, in another line of work, paying his dues. He's operating as the president of the riding association for the Conservative Party in Waterloo. And that's the way the party system is supposed to work, right? Both provincially and federally. You've got the party leadership, the executive, that operates, out of Toronto or out of Ottawa, as the case may be. But there are individual chapters, let's say, riding associations in every riding across the country. And those ridings organize so that you can find the best candidate. You can organize those nomination meetings so people that are interested in being the candidate can come forward, and there's a robust discussion and debate among the party members as to who will best represent them in the next election. So Val Neekman is kind of doing that legwork in Waterloo on behalf of the federal Conservative Party, and he fully intends on being the Conservative candidate. As I said, in another line of work, you would look at this as paying his dues. Lo and behold, after 2 years of doing that, paying his dues and preparing to seek the nomination, he never gets the chance to do it. And this is something we've seen before from every party, where a candidate gets parachuted into a particular riding without going through the formal nomination process, which, quite frankly, I don't know if it should be allowed at all, but it goes completely against the democratic process. That local riding association that's been doing the work on the ground in the community, trying to find candidates, building support for the party, that's where the work should be done to determine the nominee. And hopefully there are a couple or a few potential nominees so that there can be a discussion and decision around who would best represent the party, as opposed to somebody being acclaimed. But at the last moment, Val Neekman is out, and a candidate has been parachuted in by the federal Conservative Party. No nomination meeting, no opportunity for members of the riding association on the ground in Waterloo to have a say in it. And welcome Wasim Botros, who is now the Conservative candidate for Waterloo. Here's where it gets even more interesting. And I thank Mike for the phone call yesterday to put us on this trail. Wasim Botros was also vying to be the Conservative candidate in Kitchener-Conestoga. But there is another candidate who has been nominated in Kitchener-Conestoga for the Conservative Party. So presumably, after being unsuccessful in Kitchener-Conestoga, the Conservative Party just plucked Mr. Botros out of there and dropped him into Waterloo. Sorry, Val Neekman. Thanks for your 2 years of work on the ground. You are not going to get the chance to even compete for the nomination. We're putting in this guy. Why would the party do that? Is Mr. Botros some kind of party loyalist that deserves this reward without any effort for it? Or did he do such a good job trying to be the nominee in Kitchener-Conestoga where he was unsuccessful? Well, we'll just put him in over here. And what does that say to somebody that put in 2 years of work, in Val Neekman's case, to be that nominee? It just smacks of being undemocratic across the board. And again, while this is about the Conservative Party, which is the party that has done this in this particular instance, we see and hear about these things, sadly, all the time across party lines. Every party is engaged in this, and it gets incredibly frustrating. That does a disservice to the people who have been working hard on the ground in Waterloo for the Conservative Party, and now they get somebody just plucked in there and no chance to have had a say as to who might be their best representative. What now does Waterloo know of Wasim Botros? Is he running just because, or does the party believe that it can just win under the Conservative banner? Or maybe the party doesn't think it has a chance in Waterloo at all, so they're just going to pluck in somebody. He wasn't successful in Kitchener-Conestoga as the nominee, but we'll just drop him in over here because we really don't think we have a chance against the incumbent in that riding. I don't know what the logic is behind it, but I will say again, if you can't find 338 people across the country, do the groundwork, do the legwork, put in the effort in each individual riding. If you can't find 338 people to represent your party, I think we got a problem here. And there's certainly a problem right now in Waterloo. The election has just begun, and so too have the shenanigans. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just a couple minutes away from your update in the 570 News Center. Let's go to the phones. Always up for a conversation with you. Rory, good morning.
Mike, how you doing, sir?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good.
Good.
It's a topic close to my heart. And quite frankly, it's not the first story of the Conservatives and their issues with appointing candidates. Only 2 weeks ago, Mike, in New Brunswick, it was reported that the local riding association president quit because of a lack of transparency, and they had candidates who had worked on a nomination campaign for over a year. So, you know, it's really disheartening to see. We see it in all parties. Seeing it a lot with the Conservatives this time around. And, you know, Liberals, up until Trudeau announced that he was not going to run for re-election, were in absolute turmoil. So I'm not sure how there weren't Conservatives lining up within their communities to be the candidate. And, you know, it just leads me to ask the question, if Poilievre and the Conservative brass up there in their ivory tower aren't going to be accountable to the people that run the riding associations, run the ground game, and do all the work, how are they going to be accountable to Canadians, Mike? If and when they get in government.
It's a good question, Rory, and I appreciate it. Look, I don't know truly that the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, has visibility on the decision in Waterloo. He might. I really don't know. But I think Rory asks the really important question here, right? The ground game, this is the way it's supposed to work, right? The riding associations, all 338, one in each riding across the country, does that groundwork, and that's the party infrastructure. And if you're going to override that, it's tough. And if the leader doesn't have visibility on it, what other parts of the country will he or she not have visibility on if and when they become elected to office? Really good question there by Rory. And it's something I think that we should be concerned about within our democracy. All right, let's move from the federal level to local and how we protect rental units in Cambridge. A motion to that effect comes to council tonight. We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Does the city of Cambridge need a rental replacement bylaw? It's a question being asked by Councillor Sherry Roberts, who will bring forward a motion to that effect at Cambridge's council meeting tonight. And Councillor Roberts joins us on the show this morning. Sherry, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm glad to hear it. So let's start with the what. What is a rental replacement bylaw?
So a rental replacement bylaw is a municipal bylaw that protects our rental inventory. So when a developer wants to come in and purchase, for example, some rental units and demolish them or reconstruct them and bring them back into the market as non-rental units, they would have to retain at least the number of rental units that were originally there. So, for example, we had an example here in Ward 5 in Cambridge where we had 5 rental units, which were very affordable for the folks that were living there. And a developer came in and purchased that property. And initially there was conversations around the retention of the rental units, but that was ultimately not the decision they came to. So those 5 rental units are now being removed from Cambridge's inventory, and only condominiums for purchase are going to be on the property. So that is sort of the impetus of why I brought this forward, was seeing what happened there and trying to find a way to prevent that from happening again in the future.
Are there any other jurisdictions, Sherry, that have such a bylaw in place?
Yeah, so currently Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto, and our neighbors in Kitchener have one.
And has it turned out at all to be any disincentive to the developer, because they might want to make those, condos for sale as opposed to maintaining these rental units? Does it slow down development in any way?
So what I've heard, just sort of anecdotally, is not, but I am waiting for a report to be coming out, because when that bylaw came to Kitchener Council, they had asked for a follow-up report 1 year later. So that will be this summer. So our timing is kind of perfect, having our staff investigate this as a possibility while Kitchener is going to be releasing this report to see how the impact has been on both development and on the retention of the rental units, because I certainly don't want to do anything to de-incentivize developers coming to Cambridge. We need housing across the spectrum, but I know that we really, really need our rental units to stay intact.
Yeah, this sounds like the balancing act that we're kind of facing here, right? We need housing. We want the development for that housing. At the same time, we don't want to lose particularly the rental stock that we currently have. Exactly.
So the first way that we can increase our rental stock is to retain the ones we have and add to it, not to be removing the ones that we already have. So really, I'm asking staff to look at three things. So how do we preserve the existing rental housing supply? How do we preserve the affordable rental housing supply? And by affordable, I don't mean affordable like geared to income, but affordable to the folks who are living there, primarily due to rent controls and things like that. And then how do we increase that purpose-built rental housing? So how do we continue to add to the stock?
With a rental replacement bylaw, Sherry, would folks be able to return to that newly developed building at the same rent they had been paying prior?
So each of the rental bylaws is a little bit different, but one of the key things is that sort of right of first refusal. So you will have the opportunity as the tenant who was living there to be given the option to move back in. Correct. That is one of the key components of it. They can choose not to do that, but they have that right of first refusal.
What inspired you to champion this bylaw and bring it forward to council?
Yeah, so connecting with those residents on Blair Road and meeting with them and hearing their stories and how they'd lived there for such a long time. And these were not by any means, rundown units. Like, they were lovely, lovely homes that people were living in. And they were all being displaced. And some of them were experiencing some really challenging times. And I thought, how unfortunate that we're not only losing this rental inventory, these 5 units are gone forever. We know from our housing needs assessment that rental units are greatly needed. But these folks are now all struggling to try to get back into a rental market that is exceptionally different from what it was when they first rented those homes. So it is such a challenge, and I was really distraught by it. So I thought, what can we do sort of from a systemic point of view? And that's why I did a little research, looked into this, and so we're going to see what staff have to say.
What does the process look like from here? You're going to bring the motion to council tonight. Should it be, should your fellow councillors vote in favor? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, so tonight is just the notice of motion. So I'll be reading it tonight. There'll be no discussion on the motion tonight. That'll be coming back to us in 3 weeks at council. That is when we'll have the opportunity to discuss the motion. And then at that point, basically my motion is just asking our chief planner to investigate the feasibility and any potential implications of instituting a rental replacement bylaw similar to these other ones. So it may, we may have to tailor it specifically to the Cambridge market, because as we know, every municipality is a little different. And like I said, I don't want to do anything to de-incentivize landlords or de-incentivize developments. I just want to find a way to protect what we already have and add to it.
Sherry, I really appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much, Mike. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sherry
Roberts is the Ward 5 councillor in the city of Cambridge. Is bringing forward the notice of motion tonight. It'll be discussed at greater length in a few weeks' time. But the idea being, let's protect the rental stock that we have in the city. And Kitchener has done something very similar, which is an idea at first blush that I have been supportive of, because I remember the development in particular in Kitchener where this happened was Ottawa near Fisher Holman. But just let's say you have a group of people, 5 to 10 people renting at an affordable rate, a place in a building, be it a triplex, sixplex, maybe a house that's been converted and sublet, whatever the case may be. They're living there affordably in multiple apartment units, and then the opportunity for development comes along and something shinier and newer will be built there at a much higher rate, by the way, because that's the way it goes, right? And those people who had been living there and living there affordably no longer have that place. So do we ensure that they are allowed to continue living in that place even when the new development comes around? I think we can see the challenge here, right? As Councillor Roberts in Cambridge points out, you don't want to de-incentivize becoming a landlord or the development community for building something new. At the same time, you have to protect that rental stock. In the big picture, it just makes me think that we are becoming a much more expensive place to live. And this is a sign of the times. Let's talk more about it. What do you think of the idea of a rental replacement bylaw? We'll take your calls right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The first way that we can increase our rental stock is to retain the ones we have and add to it, not to be removing the ones that we already have. So really, I'm asking staff to look at three things. So how do we preserve the existing rental housing supply? How do we preserve the rental housing supply? And by affordable, I don't mean affordable like geared to income, but affordable to the folks who are living there, primarily due to rent controls and things like that. And then how do we increase that purpose-built rental housing? So how do we continue to add to the stock?
Sherry Roberts is the Ward 5 councillor in Cambridge. Tonight, she brings forward a notice of motion to ask that Cambridge Council consider a rental replacement bylaw. The long and the short of it is you're living in a place and somebody wishes to redevelop that place and build something new. Well, instead of you being out of a home forever, you are allowed to move back into that place as a renter, not necessarily a buyer, as has happened in Sherry Roberts' ward in Cambridge, where instead of returning to the rental market, the building was developed and became condominiums for sale. So they want to make sure, or Sherry Roberts would like to make sure, that Cambridge is protecting its rental stock and the people living within those rental units. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. You're allowed to call and share your thoughts, even if your name is not Sean, but we've got a couple of Seans on the phone. We'll start with this Sean. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning.
What do you think? Sean?
Hello? Okay, are you there? I'm sorry. You were talking to two Seans. Is it me you're talking to?
I am talking to you, sir.
Okay, good. I have two actually rental questions. One is when those people, if they renovate those apartments into condos and those people get to move back in, do they still pay the same rent as they did originally, or does their rent go up?
That would be something that would be up for debate, I think, but I would suspect the rent does go up. To what level? I'm not sure.
Okay, because I'm living right now in an $800 apartment. It's huge. It was built in the 60s. I have a huge living room, huge kitchen, two huge bedrooms, and a huge bathroom. It's an $1,800 a month apartment, hands down for sure.
Don't let too many people in on that secret, Sean.
No, well, it's a fact. People come in here and they're blown away. Everyone who walks into my place is just totally blown away about how amazing this place is. It's immaculately clean. I'm a clean freak, so it's clean all the time. But they're blown away how big it is and how much I pay. They're just like, oh my God, don't ever leave. I'm going to have to die here. There's hands down.
Right.
But, okay, my next question is, because I have friends in another building, small little six-pack. When you get an eviction notice with the reason being renovation, you had a guest on one time saying that that's not so much a thing anymore, that the landlord actually needs to put up that tenant somewhere in a hotel or while the renovation is going on. Is this true, or am I making this up?
No, that is absolutely true. You're right. And the problem is that not every tenant understands their rights under that. And it has been used. That's why we call them renovictions. And there's actually a group in Kitchener. Louisa D'Amato wrote about them in today's Waterloo Region Record. And we've talked about it on the show. It's on Traynor Avenue in Kitchener. New landlord, somebody buys the building, wants to renovate a bunch of the units. And sometimes they use the term renovation rather loosely. And they move people out. And then either those tenants don't understand the rules, or that renovation takes so long that they end up finding another place, and then the new owner can rent that unit out at market rate. As Sean just described his place, it's worth $1,800 on the market today. He's only paying $8,000. So it's sticky. But those folks on Traynor Avenue in Kitchener successfully held their ground, organized, fought back, and won. They get to stay in their rent-controlled apartments. To another Sean we go. Good morning to you, Sean.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. I just want to say I love the Star 570. I didn't realize that was an option, but you'll be hearing from me a lot more, I think, after mastering that. I was calling in because I heard Sherry mention about the fear of de-incentivizing landlords and putting up rental properties or keeping properties as rental properties. I really think that there needs to be a complete overhaul of that system. And, you know, when I look at it, it seems like, a lot of people are on the side of the tenants because there's a lot of big landlords out there with a lot of stuff, a lot of power, a lot of money. I'm one guy. I have one property in the basement of my family home that I had to rent because there is no work. Renovated it, rented out, had a couple come in with a family, and they're horrible. They haven't paid rent. Their dog runs everywhere. They don't listen to anything I ask them to. I go by all the proper means, but I don't have the money to roll over anybody or treat anybody like a big company could. I thought, what if there was a one-to-one, dollar-to-dollar sort of justice system for the whole rental scenario back and forth? So the more property you have, those cases can get pushed back a little bit longer because you're not about to lose your entire livelihood, your entire life, if you don't get a month of rent. Whereas somebody like me, I'm going into my third month now, I'm paying for Wi-Fi, I'm paying for utilities, I'm constantly being berated by the people living in my basement that used to be my mom's room. It's a horrible scenario. And that right there would make me never want to be a landlord again. And I'm not doing it to make money. I'm doing it to pay a bill. They missed 1 month of rent, and now I have to sell my place because I can't keep up with the bills and the inflation and stuff like that. So I had those two ideas. One was to come up with a one-to-one system ideology. The other one was to have a government in-check application follow through. Anybody who wants to rent something, like any other mandated and provincial system, they should put their information into a database, and you get the information back. Because in the end, you're only going to be contributing back into the economy anyways.
Yeah, Sean, listen, I hear where you're coming from, and I've heard from many a small landlord, if you will, somebody with one or two rental units or properties dealing with the same sort of thing. And sadly, I mean, I love the idea of a database and some sort of provincial oversight, but the landlord and tenant board is already so backlogged, I can't even imagine how it would deal with more. But these are the challenges we face right now in a market that is attractive to people to come and live in and the shortage of housing that exists. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I just want to take a quick moment and send a sincere congratulations to one of the good guys. He really is. Tony Giovinazzo has been named the Lions Club's Citizen of the Year. The 65th KW Citizen of the Year banquet will be held on May the 27th, and the Lions Club announcing this morning that Tony is this year's Citizen of the Year. According to the Lions Club's media release, Tony has distinguished himself as a generous, nonprofit trailblazer who has helped guide boards, including the University of Waterloo, Family and Children's Services, Sanguine Health Centre, and the Waterloo Regional Police Service. Under Tony's leadership, Activa contributes both financial and human resources to many local organizations, including Kids Ability, Habitat for Humanity, Hockey Helps the Homeless, the House of Friendship, and many others. And yes, Tony Giovinazzo is the Chief Executive Officer at Activa Developments. As I said, one of the good guys. This is an excellent selection by the Lions Club and Tony Giovinazzo, a very deserving KW Citizen of the Year. That banquet to be held on May the 27th at the Waterloo campus of Conestoga College. Excellent choice. One of the good guys, as I said. I wanted to make sure I send out a hearty congratulations to that good guy on the deserving recognition. All right, we're very close to just seconds away from your update in the 570 News Center. And then I was going through my weekend paper and an article caught my attention, which pointed me to another article, which leads me to our next guest, because it seems as though a day can't go by without us hearing something from the President of the United States about Canada becoming a 51st state. But here's the argument as to why annexing Canada could actually destroy the United States. You'll hear that argument coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that. It would be a great state. It would be a cherished state. They don't spend money on military because they think we're going to protect them. But Canada has been a very nasty negotiator against the United States, took advantage of the United States for a long time.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is U.S. President Donald Trump just 3 days ago in the Oval Office at the White House in Washington, saying again, Canada would make a great 51st state. And by the way, they don't spend any money on the military. They count on us, the Americans, to protect them. Aisha Ahmad is a professor of political science at the University of Toronto, joins us for a conversation. Aisha, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much for making the time. I confess to reading a story in my weekend newspaper that kind of pointed me back to something that you had written some time ago, but it's worth the exploration because Donald Trump refuses to stop talking about it, and that is the idea of Canada being a 51st state and the possible annexation. It seems to me, Aisha, on the surface, that this would be kind of an easy win for the United States, wouldn't it? Their power versus ours, we'd kind of just be rolled over, wouldn't we?
Hell no. Are you kidding me? No, this would destroy the United States if it decided to invade Canada. That's their total and utter death sentence if that happened. Now, when you look at it from a conventional military standpoint, I'm sure Canadians would be scared, thinking that, you know, if you look at raw conventional military power, the United States is not only more powerful than Canada, it's more powerful than any other military in the world, although the Chinese are catching up in terms of hypersonics. But that's not how asymmetric conflicts play out, unless you look at a case like Ukraine, where NATO tried to make it a symmetric type of conventional warfare. Asymmetric conflicts are fought in unconventional ways. And if you look at the track record, the Americans, despite all of their massive military capabilities, they lose wars to people who can't read. They get defeated by insurgencies all over the world, and they have a strong track record of losing. Now, the thing is, in those other places where they dare to, invade or engage in conventional warfare against weaker parties, when they finally feel that they don't want to do it anymore, they run away. They just pack up and go home. But if they ever dared to do that to Canada, they would create an insurgency on their own home front that they could never escape. And so it wouldn't be Fallujah that you're running away from. You'd be running away from it happening in New York City, and there's nowhere to go. And so this is, I can tell you, I've studied in asymmetric conflicts all over the world for 20 years, and I've advised their generals at the Pentagon on why they're losing in asymmetric conflicts around the world. I can assure you that engaging in any type of violence towards Canadians would be a death sentence for the Americans.
So hypothetically speaking, were this to play out, how would you see it going? What makes you so confident in Canada's ability to defend itself against this?
It's not about the Canadian Armed Forces. It's about the Canadian terrain. It's about the Canadian people, and it's about the natural resistance that happens when a country, when a people is subjected to violence. And so right now, today, we're a peaceful people, and we're a very reasonable people. And that's because we're in a state of peace. But just like we saw, during the French Resistance, where you had hundreds of thousands of people engaged in, physical resistance, everyday forms of resistance, as well as the Maquis, who were involved in violent resistance against an invasion and occupation force. And you'll see that's a natural phenomenon. It's not about, it's not something you can predict who you're going to be in that world. You can't really see it until it happens to you. But that's a natural phenomenon that happens to any person. Now, what I will say is Canada has a geography that makes resistance extremely amenable. This is not a conquerable country. We have deep forests, we have rugged mountains. Every bit of research that we have on insurgency shows that this is an extremely amenable territory for asymmetric conflict, for resistance-based defense. And that, the thing is, when you look at asymmetric conflict, if you fight conventionally, it favors the stronger party. But if you use irregular warfare, it actually reverses the asymmetry. So the stronger party is the one that's drained and frustrated and exhausted into the point of defeat, whereas the insurgent can fight for decades on a shoestring budget and actually outcompete them. And so there are a lot of ways in which the advantage goes to the defender if you use a different type of warfare, which isn't something that the Canadian Armed Forces would do. That is something that people would do, and is a natural thing that people do when an invading force comes into their country and kills their mom. That just happens. And I can tell you that it's a phenomenon that we've seen happen all over the world. It has nothing to do with one ideology, whether it's Maoism or jihadism or, Marxism. It has nothing to do with ideology. It has everything to do with how the weak fight back against powerful external actors.
How would the weaker, in this case, Canada, fight back against an air force, the likes of which the U.S. has at its disposal?
People always think that you can defeat insurgencies with airstrikes or with drone strikes. And I can tell you that when I said I went to the Pentagon and advised them on why it wasn't working, they throw that kind of material force at a country. But that's conventional warfare. And it doesn't work against insurgencies, which are invisible, which blend into civilian populations. And in fact, the harder they hit with airstrikes, the larger the insurgency becomes. It is the booby trap. It's the vicious cycle. And so, in fact, not to say that any of this. So first and foremost, I will say no one in their right mind would do this. No one in their right mind would do this because it's predictable. As a person who has studied insurgencies for decades, I can tell you this is an entirely predictable outcome, and it's suicidal. So no one in their right mind should actually trigger this from ever happening, because if it did happen, it would be catastrophic for both parties. The only winners in a situation like this are the Russians and the Chinese. So it should never happen. But yes, there are absolutely ways that the insurgency would defeat a larger power, even when they use airstrikes. And in fact, smart insurgents leverage that kind of destruction imposed by the larger party to increase their recruitment. And if you think about it, the goal of an insurgent isn't to hit back for pound. That's just not the way you do it. The goal that you need to do, an insurgent's goal is to not lose. Whereas the conventional military approach is that you have to hold territory and you have to establish dominance. And order making is way, way, way more expensive and difficult than creating disorder. And if you just think about it this way, it costs tens of billions of dollars to build a pipeline. It costs a few $1,000s to blow it up. So think about who gets drained over a long period of time if you fight in an asymmetric manner. So if you look at the logic and the structure of irregular warfare in asymmetric conflict, it does favor the weaker party over a very long time period, but I can say it's a destructive outcome for all parties involved. And there's no way that you can actually come out on top of that feeling like you're getting your bang for your buck. So if Donald Trump thinks that he can take our natural resources and roll over Canadians, what he will actually get is a devastating, crushing, and extremely expensive and unsolvable security problem that will never go away and will ultimately collapse the United States, not only internally but on the world stage.
It's a fascinating conversation. Aisha, I appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome.
Aisha Ahmad is a professor of political science at the University of Toronto. Minces no words, puts it very bluntly. Hell no. The the United States would not win a war, militarily or otherwise, against Canada. If you were at all concerned before this conversation, are you less concerned now? Is this a non-starter? What I can't get over is how often we keep hearing it. That clip we played to start this segment was days ago, just days ago in the Oval Office. Continuing to beat that drum is Donald Trump. Canada would make a great 51st state. They should be the 51st state, which is, without saying it as bluntly as our guest just did, we want to take over Canada. But according to Aisha Ahmad at the University of Toronto, not a chance. What say you? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Are you as confident as our guest from the U of T that we can stand up to withstand a military invasion from the States? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
It's not about the Canadian Armed Forces. It's about the Canadian terrain. It's about the Canadian people. And it's about the natural resistance that happens when a country, when a people is subjected to violence. So right now, today, we're a peaceful people and we're a very reasonable people. And that's because we're in a state of peace.
Aisha Ahmad is a professor of political science at the University of Toronto. Just try us is essentially the argument here. You will be surprised, and Aisha has studied insurgencies around the world and has warned the Pentagon against invasions against countries such as ours, where an insurgent response would lead to the sure destruction of the United States. She thinks we could hold out a lot longer on a shoestring budget. And by the way, and I like the point at the end, you know, should America even be successful in conquering Canada, what are they left with in terms of the vast terrain to then defend themselves as a 51st state? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Joe, what do you make of this? Are you afraid of the invasion?
What do you think about those legal gun owners now?
That's true. We're going to be counting on all of them, aren't we, Joe?
Yeah, like all I'm missing is like 50 cal turrets on every corner of the cottage.
That's
Turn
funny.
it into an absolute war bunker. And I got my insurgent kids that I can send out into the bush for expeditionary purposes. Yeah, I think we're covered, man.
Okay. Well, I feel comfortable now, thanks to you. Boy, oh boy.
But if the Liberals get elected again, I'll let them walk in with impunity.
Well, only if they start at Ottawa, right?
Right.
Okay. I got you, Joe. Joe will not take up arms to defend a Liberal government. How patriotic of him. Bob, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I tell you, what a way to wake up.
What a way to wake up. I wish I was only waking up at 10:20 in the morning. Come on now.
Hey, that's what our seniors we get to do.
Attaboy.
But you know what? The one thing that they forget, anywhere in the world, in the field of battle, where there is an impossible situation, who do they send in? The Canadians and the Brits, and we get the damn job done. At great sacrifice, mind you, but we get the job done. So they think it's a piece of cake? Well, you know, it might be for a little bit, but you leave your tanks, your missiles, and your planes on that side, and you want us, you come across. Hand-to-hand combat, baby. And I'll tell you what, we will kick their fat asses all the way back to Washington again.
All right, Bob, I appreciate the call. I love the bravado. I really do. It reminds me of the 1812 Strong and Free T-shirt. I know, it's just a T-shirt. Like Bob's talking about kicking ass and taking names here, but the T-shirt that we'll talk about just after 11 this morning, a similar response, the 1812 being the reference to, of course, that war and what we did to that White House in the States. There is a history here. There is a history here. And heck, it could bring about the destruction of the United States should they decide to invade militarily. So says our guest from the University of Toronto. What say you? Rob will get to your call, and there's a line for you, too, if you want to be on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Aisha Ahmad, who's an associate professor of political science at the University of Toronto, argues in a recent article that having studied insurgencies around the world for more than 20 years and spending time with ordinary people who have fought against powerful invading armies, yes, Canadians could successfully resist an American invasion. And by the way, don't be caught up in that myth of Canadian niceness, because that image only exists because we're at peace. War, Professor Ahmed argues, changes people very quickly, and Canadians are no more innately peaceful than any other human beings. Let's go back to the phones, find out how you feel about this. Rob, good morning.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm good, my friend.
Good.
First of all, I believe this is all just fear-mongering anyways, because I believe Donald Trump's trolling us because of our inadequate and disgusting government up here. But aside from that, I was curious which country she was studying. What countries around the world formed in the last 150 years that were battle-hardened on their own land? I can't think of one other than none.
This one.
Right. So long story short is I believe the 101st Airborne, if it wanted to, would come over our border and would be done in 3 days.
You think so?
197%. And I'll tell you why. Years ago, we tried to, just for one day, stop going to Petro-Canada. We couldn't do that.
But this is different. I mean, this would be different. This would be under invasion, Rob.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Delusional.
All right.
Anyways, it was good to hear.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. Point taken. And I do love the reference, by the way, because I've made this one on multiple occasions. When it comes to us fighting back, like it was the Loblaws boycott was probably the most recent, if I'm not mistaken. But I've been in this business long enough. I remember, I think, the very first time that we said as a people, oh, yeah, we're going to collectively boycott this one of the big oil companies. We're going to teach them a lesson and not buy from that particular station for just one day so that we could send a message that we're fed up with the price at the pumps. And here we are decades later, because I remember being a junior reporter at a radio station in Toronto when I covered that particular story. So anyway, Rob, thanks for that, and thanks for being blunt. I'll squeeze in one more before 10:30. What the heck? Steve, good morning.
Good morning. So, yeah, I have to echo the sentiment of your last caller there. I think Canadians, and especially the media, they need to stop stoking this fire before something seriously bad happens, because it would be a fight over and done long before anybody even knew it started. Canada is not what we were 80 years ago. You just have to look around the population. You can put people in the fetal position with harsh language nowadays. I do not see us fighting a good fight. I really don't.
Okay, thank you, Steve. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't laugh, but that's kind of funny. You can put people in the fetal position with strong language these days. Bring it. Listen, you bring your worst language. I'm ready for it. Zoltan, I got 30 seconds for you, the magnificent.
Okay, 30 seconds. I'm not 18 years old. I'm a product of the 1956 Hungarian Revolution. When I was 7 years old, they taught me how to make my own gunpowder, how to make pipe bombs and Molotov cocktails. And the guy that was just on does not know what it means to have a god-darn rifle up your nose and what you're going to do and what the rest of the people are going to do.
All right, Zoltan, I want you on my side. I'll take you and me, side by each, to the enemy lines, okay? We're going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then I can't help but think of this.
Oh, my God, they're talking! Oh, they're crashing to the earth right in front of our eyes! One just went through the windshield of a parked car! Oh, my goodness! Oh, the humanity! The turkeys are hitting the ground like sacks of wet cement!
Oh, the classic WKRP turkey drop. But we're not dropping turkeys. We're dropping Easter eggs. Yes, from a helicopter. Story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You got to admit, it's a great visual, isn't it? Just picture a helicopter hovering above a soccer field in Cambridge, and then at the appropriate time, releasing 25,000 Easter eggs that fall to the field below, allowing the kids to collect their little prize. It's happening. And as you can picture it in your mind, you're probably not going to be surprised to find out just how popular the whole thing is. Beth Ann Prince is the manager of community investment at WFCU Credit Union. You know from listening to this show that ECU, a division of WFCU Credit Union, is a great friend of the program. And Beth Ann, it's great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike, and thank you for having us. This is such an exciting time for the community, and we're looking forward to all these little smiling faces. We're happy to announce that actually overnight at the the egg drop has sold out. So we now have started a waiting list for the event. And like you said, it is happening on Saturday, April 12th, with the partnership with the City of Cambridge and working with the city. And I know the Mayor of Cambridge is extremely excited and thinking that there might be a helicopter ride in her future, too. So.
I love it. Mayor Liggett would love that for sure. And I joked earlier this morning, Beth Ann, that never have I wanted more to be a kid again, because that just sounds like so much fun. It's no wonder that you got word overnight that it was sold out.
Well, it's just we've done this in Windsor, and if you can imagine, 10,000, 20,000 eggs coming out of the helicopter and on the field, and for the children to go out on the field and collect all the eggs, it takes minutes. They go out there and they collect the eggs, and the field is empty in a matter of minutes. It's just so exciting to see. And, there's always extra special guests like the bunny and some princesses and some magicians, and it's just a very exciting morning.
It is on, again, Saturday, April the 12th at the soccer fields on Fountain in Cambridge. As Beth Ann mentioned, a waiting list is now being filled, but this is just one of what you call at WFCU, Beth, Inspire signature events. Why is this kind of work important to the credit union?
Yeah, the credit union is all about giving back to the community, and through our Inspire program, we do events that, educate, inspire, bring the community together, entertain, and some of our events in the Inspire program, including our regional script spelling bee, which we just had the last couple weeks. So we have our winner from the area that will be going to Washington for the Scripps National Spelling Bee, which is always exciting. So we have that, and we work with the school boards in the Waterloo region, which is we've worked really well with the teachers, and they're really excited every time that we announce that the Spelling Bee registrations are open. At the holidays, we provided family movies at a few of the movie theaters that the families over the Christmas holidays could go and enjoy. And we just are always making an impact in the communities that we serve. So whether it's sponsoring galas or not-for-profits, ECU is there to help the community and make sure that it's the best community for everyone.
I can just imagine a group of you sitting around plotting the next idea, and it must be so much fun to come up with these. The trick or trot, which we've talked about before, spelling bees are always fun for the kids, the egg drop, holiday events and things like that. It must just be so much fun to be in your line of work.
It's very busy, it's very exciting, and it's very fulfilling seeing the positive impact on the community. And of course, when we do anything with young people, it's always great to see that they're the future of they're our future, and if we can make an impact, that's all that we want to make sure. We've got other events happening that has to do with egg sighting initiatives. We've got Storybook Gardens in London. We're partnering with them for some exciting fun. And then, as you know, we have branches all over Ontario, so we are also in Kingston doing some Easter programming too. So it is very, very busy time for us, but at ECU, we're very happy to be part of the community.
Storybook Gardens was one of my absolute favorite places to visit when I was a kid. I loved it.
Yeah, well, they have an event that goes 4 days. So there's always an opportunity, and all their information is on their website too. And if you want to join the wait list for the Cambridge Egg Drop, they can go to myecu.ca, and the information is there, and they just need to send us an email, and we will try and put them on the wait list, and if we have any cancellations, we will certainly try and accommodate.
You read my mind on that one. I wanted to make sure we let folks know for the egg drop on April the 12th. Yes, it's to a wait list, but if you visit myecu.ca, you can get on your wait list. Why is this important to ECU, Beth, to be involved in the community like this?
Well, our members really put their trust in us, and we can only do and we can only give back to our community through the trust of our members. And we want to make sure that we make the communities the best that we can to live and work and play. And it's something that, as our credit union and as we expand across Ontario, we want to make sure that we are the place to do business, the place to contribute to the community and really make an impact. We're all about making an impact, whether it's financially, on your personal wealth, and making an impact on the community. So we look forward to doing more things in the community, whether it's financial literacy programs and seminars, whether it's community events, whether it's sponsoring Little League baseball and hockey. We're here to help the community, and that's our mission.
Well, it is certainly felt, that impact in the community, and we appreciate it. Looking forward to the egg drop and so much more. Beth Ann, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate your time.
Beth Ann Prince is a manager of community investment at WFCU Credit Union. As you know, ECU, a division of WFCU Credit Union, is a good friend of the program. And how about that? The 25,000 Easter eggs being dropped from a helicopter onto the soccer fields on Fountain Street down below in Cambridge on April the 12th. It is to a waiting list at this point, but please make sure you still get on that waiting list. Just visit myecu.ca for details, and maybe you can take part. Regardless, it's going to be a great visual, and maybe Mayor Jan will get her ride in that helicopter. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I love our in-studio guests, especially when they come to talk about great things. And this particular great thing, we were chatting during the break, now into its 4th year. The Essentials Fund is back. The co-founders of it, Jane Arnold and Allison Kretsch, join me in studio. Jane, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Allison, nice to see you. Good morning.
You too. Good to see you again.
So, Jane, let's go back to the beginning, 4 years ago, which went by in the blink of an eye, right?
In the blink of an eye.
Why did we start the Essentials Fund?
So we started it because we kept seeing online all of the nonprofits asking for essential items. They would tweet out or send in their newsletter, we need soap, we need toiletries, we need weather-appropriate clothing. And so we thought there's just got to be an easier way to do this. And so we, a group of community volunteers came together and we started the Essentials Fund. And basically we fundraise and we advocate for them, and we provide an unrestricted grant after our fundraising.
That's the real key here, isn't it? The unrestricted nature of this grant.
Yes. Yeah, because they know what their clients need. And so this allows them the flexibility to go and get those items whenever they need it, rather than having to store a whole bunch of stuff, because often they don't have room for that.
So, Allison, it's one thing to identify the need that Jane just described and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. But logistically, how does the Essentials Fund even get off the ground?
A great group of community-minded folks that are willing to come together. So each year we come together, we brainstorm ways to get out there, get the message out in the community, and we rely a lot on our own on our own network within the community to advocate, as Jane mentioned, for the things that the organizations need. And then donations come in through a great platform that we're using with the Community Foundation. And from there, we're able to receive applications from the not-for-profits explaining what they need, why they need it. And our group reviews all those applications and then makes decisions on the grants that are going to go out.
And so the grants are strictly financial grants for those organizations, as Jane mentioned, unrestricted grants, to spend the funds on whatever it is they've sent in that application.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And they can make changes and decisions as they go. And then later in the year, they typically will let us know what kinds of things they've used those funds on, which is a great way for us to then message all the donors that supported us each year to explain exactly how those funds helped people right here in our community. And I mean, typically the stories pull at our heartstrings and reassure us why we do this.
What kind of impact, Alison, have you seen over the first 3 years of running the Essentials Fund?
It's been a huge impact. And I think also the message is getting out that this fund is available. And so each year we end up with more applications because the organizations hear about it. They understand that they have access to some funds that they wouldn't otherwise be able to tap into for these types of items. And so we know that there's ever more need. Like we'll never max out on it, and it really reassures us that we're making an impact.
How much has been raised over the first 3 years?
$135,000 over 3 years. So we're hoping to increase that this year, and that's 60 grants that have gone out to local organizations. Some of them have received a duplicate over the years.
Right, $135,000, 60 grants going out over the 3 years. Terrific work. I mean, that's got to feel pretty good, Jane, for you and then the group of volunteers that work on this.
It does, and I think that because we're all community volunteers, we know how hard the nonprofit sector works. They help our most vulnerable community members. And this year, I mean, it's always tough for them funding-wise, but this year in particular, grant streams are drying up. And so anything that we can do to help them is sort of at the top of our focus.
How can, because we talk a lot about the community here, how can the community support the work you're doing and increase that $135,000?
Well, we launched our fourth fundraising campaign last Thursday, the first day of spring.
Is it spring? I looked outside today. I'm not sure, Jane.
I know. But we fundraise until the end of April. Last year, though, we extended our fundraising because we knew there was so much need. Last year, we received 29 applications, and which was up from the 17 that we had received the year before. But we accept donations year round. With our grants being provided in the summer. And so you can reach us at our website, and I'll pass it to Alison.
That's essentialsfundwr.ca.
Essentialsfundwr.ca. Okay, and we can go right there, make a donation. As of today, you started the fundraising, Jane, you mentioned last Thursday, first day of spring. So what next, Alison? Until the end of April, you collect these donations, and then I'm sure the committee, the volunteers, the real work begins.
Mm-hmm. So the push is on to get news out there and drum up as many donations as we can from this great community. We've had tons of support in the past. We're hoping to see that again this year. And then sometime in late spring, we will put the call out for applications, which we keep super simple so it's not onerous on the not-for-profits. We don't want to add to their work. And we'll review those. And then, as Jean mentioned, the grants will be made in the summer.
It must fill your buckets a little bit too, doing this. I know there's a lot of work and hours, countless hours go into it, but when you see the impact, it must make the whole group feel pretty darn good.
Absolutely. As I said, when we get the stories back about how the funds were used, and sometimes things come in that we hadn't even thought about, and those are the things that really reassure us that this is fundamentally needed, and it's even more needed than what we're able to provide. So we're hoping to continue to grow it.
Jane, it strikes me that we're really just, filling a bit of a gap here, aren't we, with a fund like this?
Really, often people will say to me, why do organizations not have this funding? And that's a great question. And, I think that the need is so great in our community right now. We keep hearing stories through volunteer work about how waiting lists are increasing and more people are reaching out and needing the support. So while we wish that it wasn't needed. We're happy to do what we're trying to do to help. And one of the things I would mention is that we took an advocate role last year because when we did ask the organizations sort of what their needs were, sort of the most checked off box was support for bus fare, which was really interesting to us because we had no idea that so many organizations provide bus fare for their clients to get to medical appointments or what have you. And so we took on an advocate role in that and just raising awareness about that.
All right. EssentialsFundWR.ca. That's the website we can use. Jane Arnold, Alison Kretsch, the co-founders of the Essentials Fund. Fundraising underway again. Thanks for what you're doing, you and the entire committee, and thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Alison Kretsch, Jane Arnold, co-founders of the Essentials Fund. Please go to EssentialsFundWR.ca and help increase those contributions that have been made over the first 3 years. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. At the start of the show today, I shared with you some of the shenanigans that were happening locally as an election campaign is underway, particularly in the riding of Waterloo, where the Conservative Party decided to parachute in a candidate who had tried unsuccessfully to win the nomination in Kitchener-Conestoga. So despite there being a long-standing volunteer who was intending to run for the nomination in Waterloo, the Conservatives just took the guy who couldn't win in Kitchener-Conestoga, couldn't win the nomination, and dropped him into Waterloo and said, there you go, Waterloo. That is now your candidate. It's funny the way things work, and it elicited some feedback via email to Mike at 570news.com. David writes, my riding is Oxford County. The last election, we had a candidate parachuted in from Brampton. Our riding would elect a skunk if it ran for the Conservative Party, so the candidate was guaranteed a win. Turns out he was involved in Pierre Poilievre's successful campaign in running for the leadership of the Conservative Party, and this was his reward. And that's what tends to happen at the party level, and it's a problem from where I'm sitting. All right, I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then earlier this hour, we talked about what if there were an American invasion of Canada? How would that go over for the States? And we differed in our thoughts on that, how well we would respond or how poorly we would respond. I think our next guest has the perfect attire for our Canadian militia if we should go that route. The 1812 Strong and Free T-shirt, a reminder of that great victory of ours 200 years ago. We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. So how is it that you are showing your patriotism these days? Are you picking up a bottle of French's ketchup instead of Heinz? Are your elbows up? Maybe, just maybe, you want or have already the 1812 Strong and Free T-shirt. That is the creation of an artist in Guelph who just so happens to be a former city councillor as well. Mike Salisbury joins the show this morning. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Where did the idea for the 1812 Strong and Free T-shirt come from?
It was about a week ago. I had a conversation with a friend, and he was absolutely convinced that it's only a matter of time before tanks from the U.S. start rolling north. And my first thought was, that's just ridiculous. And then my second thought was, what part of this whole scene isn't ridiculous? And now I went, okay, what can I do? What do we need to do to pull together and build? And we're seeing it happen. And I'd always been fascinated by the lack of attention to the one time we did stop an American invasion and, for good measure, burn down their White House. That's why it's white, because it needed to cover the scorch marks. So we developed this T-shirt brand, and it has absolutely taken off. There is such an appetite for people to band together and to show solidarity. It's been really amazing.
So absolutely taken off. What does that look like from your end? How are you meeting demand and orders?
It's print on demand, so it's fully automated. It takes a little bit longer to receive the products because they're not printed in advance, but that kind of keeps the waste down, keeps the cost down, and allows people to order. I think at this point there's over 100 variations in colors of shirt and graphic. So you can really. I picked up a handful of samples, and I was really impressed with the quality and the way it looked, because I like a black shirt with a gray symbol on it. It's not so bold, but there's red on white, white on red, every different color combination you can think of. So it looks good.
$25 is the cost. Should I read anything into the number 25, Mike?
Well, $25 is the cost for the original red on white, which is sort of like our flag. It's the first one that was created. It's the other ones are only $29, but we've got a sale on for the original red on white, and it's absolutely a bit of a nod at the whole genesis of this, starting with the 25% tariffs. It seemed to be a logical place to start, but it's the red leaf on white, like the Canadian flag. So.
Is this only seeing uptake on this side of the border, or are you getting orders from other parts of the world?
Well, there's two things that are really interesting about that. There are some sales coming in from the States. Our cost for shipping is purposefully high into the U.S., so we welcome U.S. customers, but they're going to pay for it. Canadian customers, we're looking at a way to get our shipping down under $5. Haven't got there yet. I think it's around $11 right now, but we're working with the distributor. The other thing that I found amazing is that within days, there was at least half a dozen American T-shirt brands absolutely lifting both the artwork and the content, some of them even referring to it as the Mike Salisbury 1812 T-shirt, which I thought was interesting. But a lot of them advertising how they're made in the USA, which I must be automated, because the irony of that is just beyond me.
I love it. So it's the Mike Salisbury 1812 T-shirt that they're selling in the United States.
That's right. Yeah, without having asked Mike Salisbury or the 1812 people. So, and it's I guess that's the world we live in these days. I immediately thought you could spend your time running around trying to get them to stop, or just point out how ridiculous it is and use it as a way to build solidarity.
I don't think the president asked to start talking about us as a 51st state either. So whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a big deal. A lot of people don't know, and some people say, "Oh, wait a minute, it's not the Canadians who burned down the White House." And to be completely accurate, it's not. It was the British Army. But it was interesting because it was the British Army. The people that banded together with that crisis were the British troops, Indigenous warriors, black soldiers, including enslaved men who'd come up from the U.S., French-Canadian voltigeurs, the Métis fighters, and even American refugees who just came up and didn't want to be a part of the States anymore. So I like to think of it as sort of the very first time we showed our true colors as a multicultural country, and that continues to this day. So it's perfect.
I know, Mike, that following your time on Guelph Council, where you spent 3 terms, you have turned your focus back to your artistic roots. Is now clothing and apparel the future for Mike Salisbury?
Oh, it's so funny, because when this first came up, I thought, I'm busy doing something else. This is something, but I tried to find people to take it off my hands, and they just said, well, why don't you just do it? So I've devoted the last couple of weeks to developing the infrastructure, the online, the e-commerce brand. But what I've decided to do is open it up to others who were like me at the beginning and said, look, I don't really want to run a T-shirt company, but I sure would love to have my artwork available to express my patriotism. And so a big focus of the site is exactly that, is it's looking to sort of establish itself as almost like an online gallery, where artists can contribute their work and get paid for the ones that they sell through the site. I figure if I've gone to all the trouble of the learning curve, I may as well share that knowledge with other Canadians.
Where can we find the T-shirt, Mike?
1812 strongandfree.ca.
So that's 1812 strongandfree.ca. I love it. I love the way it's exploded, and appreciate you making time on the show, Mike. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. Mike Salisbury, former councillor in the city of Guelph, now the creator of and seller of 1812 Strong and Free T-shirts. You can check them out for yourself at the site we just mentioned, 1812strongandfree.ca. $25 for the original, because, tariffs and 25% and all that nonsense. I'm curious if it's a T-shirt like this, if it's an elbows up, if it's the way you shop. What have you begun to do, if anything, to show your patriotism? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I'd always been fascinated by the lack of attention to the one time we did stop an American invasion and, for good measure, burned down their White House. That's why it's white, because it needed to cover the scorch marks. So we developed this T-shirt brand, and it has absolutely taken off. There is such an appetite for people to band together and to show solidarity.
Not for the first time today, Canada/Britain's former conquering of the United States is brought up here on the show. Of course, we burned down the White House during the War of 1812. And that is the genesis behind the 1812 Strong and Free T-shirt created by Guelph artist Mike Salisbury, a former city councillor in Guelph. 1812strongandfree.ca is the website you can use to check out the T-shirt for yourself, maybe even pick one up because you want to show your patriotism in that way. When we talked about this in the last hour, whether or not a U.S. military invasion would ultimately be successful, we had some mixed reviews. Many thought that Canada would just roll over because we're pretty soft these days, while others thought, you know what, you punch us in the nose and we're gonna punch back, as Ontario Premier Doug Ford would say. And so the idea of what happened during the War of 1812 came up then. I wonder what it is that you are doing to show your patriotism these days, if anything. You put a Canadian flag up that you hadn't had up before. Get yourself an elbows up T-shirt of some kind. You want to get the 1812 Strong and Free T-shirt. Is it the way you shop? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Maybe you're protesting outside a Tesla dealership. I don't know. Chris, good morning.
Amen to those people who protest outside of Tesla dealerships.
Amen to them.
Amen to them. Amen to anyone who is supporting Canadian, who has stopped buying Amazon, who is buying local like they should be. Amen to anyone who supports our country in the way that we have been. Man, we've really binded together in this time of need, eh?
I think we have, yeah. And if it's a good thing or a silver lining to come from this, that would be it. I think we are as united as we've ever been.
I think we need to open up our provincial borders to better trade systems. I think we can go. We could definitely improve there. I know that if the Americans decide to come north of the border, I will sign up to be one of the first to meet them at the border.
You're not going to roll over.
No, I'm not rolling over. But I really don't think we're going to find a ton of our allies coming to our aid. I think most of them are afraid economically, and with the powerhouse that the U.S. is of a military, they're not going to come fish us out.
All right, Chris, appreciate the call. Another way that another person in our community is showing their patriotism, Shockey Fahel, who's a well-known local businessman. He's been snowbirding in Florida for about 15 years now, getting away from Canada's more harsh winters. But he says, that's it. I'm selling my snowbird home because this is more than an insult. It's an attack. And Shockey has written a letter to the editor in the newspaper in the Florida district where he lives. And it's also now been picked up by the Telegraph in the UK. And Shockey's response to what's going on is, hey, I'm getting the HE double hockey sticks out of Florida. I don't need to snowbird there anymore. Sean, what about you? Good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. We talked earlier. I want to ask you another question, but I, on my balcony, have 6 Canadian flags flying very, very high.
Attaboy.
And I walk around my neighborhood every morning, and now I'm seeing Canadian flags go up all over the place because they drive by my house, and I look and see, on a good west wind, they're just all flapping away. So it looks amazing. I have a big sign that's red, white, and red that says Made in Canada also.
Good job. So you are publicly displaying this where you live.
Definitely, and now it's catching on, which I love. I almost cried one morning. I woke up and I saw 2 Canadian flags on my neighbor's house. I almost broke out in tears. I'm like, oh my God, it was so amazing. I'm like, and now I'm walking around the neighborhood and I'm seeing them pop up all over the, because everyone drives past my street. It's kind of a main street to drive on, and it's catching on, and I love it.
I'm glad to hear about it, Sean. I'm glad to see it too. I don't know if it's just because we're more aware, or maybe Sean's right. Maybe it is catching on and more of us want to make sure that flag is on display, that sign is on display, that visible display of your patriotism in the wake of what we're going through with our closest neighbor. You know, I don't know if this is a display of patriotism or not, but as you no doubt heard by now, over the weekend, a statue of Wayne Gretzky in Edmonton was defaced. Can I say that? Defaced with feces. I'm not sure that's a display of patriotism. I've got some thoughts on that I'll share in just a moment, and you can let us know how it is that you are showing your Canadian patriotism these days. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It might be the way you shop. It might be what you wear. It might be what you're displaying outside your house. How is it that you are putting your patriotism on display these days? Mike Salisbury, a former city councillor in Guelph, has returned to his artistic roots, and along with that, he has created the 1812 Strong and Free t-shirt, which ironically has been duplicated by vendors in the U.S. who are selling it as their own. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Brian, good morning.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I am very good.
Good.
Actually, it's Brian Burke calling.
Hello, Brian Burke calling.
I know. Just letting you know. You know what? Kudos to Lindemann Electric Services for that ad in that last break.
Terrific, isn't it?
It is. You know what? More of that. We need a lot more of that. Just wanted to tell you a quick story. Some 50-odd years ago, my dad was the secretary of the Committee for an Independent Canada. So didn't want to get rid of the monarchy. Old Irish guy probably would have. But what he wanted to do was build economic independence from the United States.
What a novel idea.
And here we are, 50 years later, and maybe we're actually getting there. That's my old man would be pretty happy.
He would be, and deservedly so.
And the way people have responded is really cool. The more you can buy from the guy next door, and look, I work with an association now where we worry a lot about the people next door, and just do a little research before you buy something. That's all we're asking. A lot of great services, great companies across this region. Help them out because they need it.
No question about it. Appreciate it, Brian. Good to hear from you.
Hey, always nice to talk.
Stay well, my friend. Center for Family Business is the organization that Brian refers to now. And yeah, we've got lots right here. We can continue to support those places right here. I mentioned before the break that one of the ways, I don't know if this is showing our patriotism when we protest outside a Tesla dealership. Isn't it funny that, Teslas were the vehicles of choice for an individual who probably leaned further to the left of the political spectrum. And now, of course, those same people who are very upset with Elon Musk are protesting outside his dealerships. I don't know if that is a way of showing one's patriotism. I guess it could be. Similarly, dumping or defacing Wayne Gretzky's statue in Edmonton with feces, I guess could be a way you could make the argument, maybe, that it's a way of displaying your patriotism. I saw that over the weekend, and I just kind of shook my head. And look, I'm not here to defend Wayne Gretzky per se. I've told you before that my hockey world will always be defined by and revolve around Wayne Gretzky because he was the player I grew up watching. I think he was and is the greatest player to ever play the game, and that's the beginning and the end of it. I think he was the best hockey player ever. And when I saw what happened to his statue in the city that adored him and obviously put up the statue to commemorate what he did for that city in sports, when I saw what happened to it, I thought, this is kind of like saying to somebody, I don't like your friends, so I'm going to deface your statue outside the arena in Edmonton. Like, that's really what this comes down to. And if you don't like his friends, fine, and you're allowed to express your dislike of his friends. The other part of it, though, I wonder is, what do we expect Wayne Gretzky to do? Like, okay, he could distance himself from the president of the United States if that makes you happy and makes you not want to put dog poop on his statue. But then what? Is he supposed to don a cape and save Canada from the evil tyrant that is Donald Trump? I don't know he's a hockey player, for crying out loud. Anyway, that's my 10 cents on that. I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then let's talk Top Home Chef, why it's happening again and what it supports. That's coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It has become a signature event here in the region of Waterloo. It is KW Legacy's Top Home Chef event, and it is in support of the Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council. Very pleased to be joined on the show this morning by a couple of old friends who are founding members of KW Legacy. Sean Doherty is with us this morning. Sean, good to see you. Good morning.
Oh, happy to be here.
Scott Lackenbauer is with us as well. Morning, Scott.
Good morning.
And Alyssa Brewer-Singh, who is the executive director at the Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council, is with us as well. Alyssa, great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you as well. Thanks, Mike.
Always happy to have you here. Sean, if I can start with you, and maybe let's take this back to the beginning, really. I know KW Legacy is a going concern and has been for, I guess we're about a decade now with KW.
That's right.
Yeah, so you get this thing started, and what was the idea behind it?
Well, KW Legacy Foundation is all about putting on events in the local community, to support local startup initiatives and support people in our community. And we were looking for some events to support, about 6-7 years ago. And another member and I, Pete Kalflesh, and I had done a previous event called Real Men Can Cook, where we were chefs at the event. And we loved it so much and we're so inspired by it that we wanted to revive it within our own charity, with our own twist in the community. And it's become a hit since then.
So what happens at Top Home Chef?
Well, I could tell you that it's a gala event for our charity, but it's also a food event showcasing the cooking talents of our members, who year over year put out samples of a dish of their choosing that 400 guests come and consume, and they vote on their favorites, as do local celebrity chefs. And it's really awe-inspiring for all the attendees, the volunteers, who run it. Everybody has a great time, but especially the chefs. They have an outstanding time.
Scott, when you think back on the legacy of KW Legacy, if I can put it that way, what reflections do you have?
It just seems like in a blink we've gone 10 years. It's been amazing. We've done other initiatives, our golfing initiative where we do scholarships for students and give back, and that's raised over $1 million locally as well. It's just been amazing that our group, our membership, our own members of KW Legacy, 28 strong now, are just always so dependable and want to give back to the community.
In this particular case, Scott, and Sean alluded to it, the conversation with Pete Kalflesh, I know Mike Denemy was heavily involved in this as well. Those scholarships through the golf tournament were one thing, and really, I think the initial thrust of KW Legacy, but now you've moved into, by supporting the Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council, the mental health space. Why was that important to you as an organization?
Is it for Sean or me?
Oh, sorry, for you, Scott.
Oh, yes. We found that it was so we worked with Elisa for a long time now, and we are all very passionate. So everything we get involved in is about our own passion as a group. And men's mental health was where it started. Our group was initially men, and then we certainly realized that we had to diversify. Our group is now very diverse. And then we've also then moved on to its Waterloo Regional Suicide Prevention, all mental health for all. And I can't believe how much we've heard back from this specific event on how important it is. And it affects and impacts so many people in our community.
Elisa, to that point, I knew a lot of the guys, and I mean that literally, behind KW Legacy from our days at St. Jerome's High School together. And so there's an all-boys high school before it went co-ed. And as Scott just mentioned, this was a group of men starting out. How important is it for men to be involved in these conversations, particularly publicly, about mental health?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Mike. Certainly we know that men tend to be overrepresented in some of our statistics. And so when we have the opportunity to start these conversations certainly in a very public way, we've brought in some incredible keynote speakers who have shared their own journey, which really then encourages that conversation a little bit further. All of a sudden, individuals are saying, that's me, or I resonate with part of that story, and they start kind of sharing their story, and it sort of increases that circle of support where people recognize that they're not alone in some of their experiences and some of their journey, and they begin to build this really organic community of support through having these really open conversations. And so it just starts with that one moment, that one spark, and it really increases from there, which is amazing.
Can you share with us, Elisa, a little bit about the work that the Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council does?
Absolutely. I'm always happy to talk about our work. We often frame it sort of in the understanding of hope, help, and healing, which really, what that really comes down to is around education. It's around training. It's about building a sense of community. It's about distribution of resources. So last year, WSBC distributed over 16,000 resources to ensure that individuals had timely access to where do they go for support. Oftentimes when we're in moments of crisis, it's challenging to find where are those access points in the community. And so things like our crisis resource cards provide that quick access for individuals. We also work a lot with youth, and specifically with the Waterloo Region District School Board and the Catholic School Boards, and we're providing these presentations right in the classrooms. We're having these facilitated conversations with students to be able to build that resiliency with them. Again, to encourage how do we start having conversations then that we can carry through into our adult years, and then we certainly provide bereavement supports as well, which has been a collaboration with us and a couple different agencies in the community to ensure individuals who are bereaved have a space and a place to be able to connect with one another.
I know that this partnership has been going on for a number of years now with KW Legacy through this event, supporting the Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council. Elisa, what do partnerships like this mean to you in the council?
This partnership is it's one that's truly amazing. What started as an event that focuses on food and conversation has just become this incredible integration of community support. Certainly from a funding perspective, this event is a large representation of a lot of the funding that we receive. And so, they are supporting directly the work that we're doing, but indirectly they're supporting the conversations that again start and carry on from there. And that's what's so necessary. As we look to build community capacity, it is all around where do we start these conversations? How do we encourage them, and how do we move them forward?
Scott, when you think back on the foundation of KW Legacy, those early meetings, and you hear Elisa talk about the impact that this group is making for her organization, how does that make you feel?
I feel so proud of our group and our membership, and even our volunteers. Everyone, let's just say, gets it, and they understand the importance of what we do and how we do it. And it's just the amazing feedback within our own membership group, and then those that surround us with friends and family and guests and everybody that comes out to these events. I never hear a negative iota of anything. It's so positive.
Sean, if I'm not mistaken, going back to the Real Men Can Cook days, were you not were you a back-to-back winner in that?
I wish I could claim that.
Oh, I thought you were.
It's true that Pete and I were champions at that event, you know, and that just made us more excited. It made us want to pay that feeling we had at that event forward in our own charity. You know, it's just a true joy to serve when you volunteer in the community, as you do, Mike, a lot. You know, we're inspired by you as well. It wasn't about winning multiple champions, although we do have a couple multiple champions, you know, and if they're listening, I'm sure they'll be glad that we had a shout out to them. And but those champs, they inspire the other future chefs. You know, we've got a lot of outstanding dishes coming at this event, and the inspiration from them and the stories behind them are just heartwarming. And a lot of them are inspired by those previous champions, because we've been going now, this is our 5th year. So we have this momentum from the chefs carrying it forward like Pete and I did. And I'm just so pleased to see that's where the momentum's coming from and where it was born from.
10 years for KW Legacy, 5 years now for Legacy Top Home Chef. I can't believe how quickly the time flies. April the 26th, so we're just about a month away. Sean, how can people get involved?
Well, you know, unfortunately, the event's sold out. It's so popular.
Way to go.
But, you know, go to our website, kwlegacy.ca. You can see a little bit more about what it's about. And reach out to the members that you know, or to the website to get more info. And spread the word about the messages that we share with Elisa and others about mental health and how important it is. You know, like I like what Elisa said, that we raise money, but we also raise awareness and discussion amongst ourselves, and that goes a long way, you know, in addition to what we're doing with Elisa and groups like her. So my message to everybody out there is continue that conversation like Elisa suggested, even if you can't be part of our event directly.
Love you guys and love the work that you're doing through KW Legacy and this event. And, you know, Elisa, just to finish off or springboard off what Sean was saying and these conversations, and I feel like we're having them more. Maybe I'm just paying more attention, but I get the sense that we are talking more about mental health. How are we doing in the space from your perspective as someone who works in it?
Yeah, we are certainly having a lot more conversations. You know, workplaces are actively getting involved. I'll plant a bit of a seed, I suppose, that if, you know, anyone that is listening is ever interested in a presentation at their workplace, please reach out to WSPC via the website, and we'd be happy to come and continue that conversation. But, you know, it's not just about the traditional spaces. We're having conversations everywhere. We're having conversations in the grocery stores. We're having conversations in the sports fields. We're having conversations sort of everywhere. And so absolutely, Mike, you're right. We're shifting that. It's no longer a subject that we can't have a conversation about. We're really open to being able to do that. And so we'll continue to support people as they push forward in that journey.
What is that website so folks can find it, Elisa?
Absolutely. It's wrspc.ca.
Perfect. Waterloo Region Suicide Prevention Council, wrspc.ca. Elisa Brewer-Singh is the executive director there. Sean Doherty, Scott Lachenbauer, founding members of KW Legacy. Thank you all for joining us this morning. And here's to another sold-out Legacy Top Home Chef in a month. Way to go. Thanks for this.
Thanks
so much, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, as we say goodbye to winter here in the region, no, seriously, we're saying goodbye to winter here in the region, right? You'd never know it by the weather so far this week, although this pales in comparison to what we endured. However, it feels after all of the snow that we had, we should have been able to get rid of it and then just keep marching on boldly and quickly into spring, but this is that false springtime, and here we are. Hockey playoffs are supposed to be more spring-like too. So if we could clear this up by Friday, that'd be great. Either way, when you finish winter, you know that you move into construction season, right? And that's why the CAA is out once again with its annual Worst Roads campaign. If you would like to nominate a road, we've got a few we could pick on around here. You can just go to CAAWorstRoads.com. You probably heard about this during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Mark Douglas, that the Worst Roads campaign was underway once again. And I don't know if it's just me, because we take everything so personally when we are experiencing them. So maybe it's just the roads that I'm driving on. But I feel as though there are way more, like there have to be, right? Way more potholes this year than there have been in the past. I thought, and it's funny, I checked the messages on my phone during that commercial break, and wouldn't you know, I had a message from my buddy Al, who said, if you're talking about worst roads, please don't forget to mention Ira Needles Boulevard. He says, in general, I like it because I usually feel like Dale Earnhardt while I'm driving it. Ha ha. I call it the Ira Needles racetrack for a reason. But Ira Needles is an absolute dog's breakfast of a road. It is, as Al points out in his message to me, a patchwork quilt of a roadway. And I really don't know what you do if you're the region, because this is such an important and highly traveled thoroughfare that there is going to be some kind of nightmarish mess when you inevitably close it down to resurface it, because you need to resurface it. It is ridiculous. It's the pothole slalom, as a former colleague and good friend liked to say at this time of year. Ira Needles, a disaster. But it wasn't all that long ago that I was headed out to the Catalyst building at Glasgow and Belmont. And I'll tell you what, taking Wellington Street through Kitchener, and that's an old, if you're of a certain vintage in the city of Kitchener, you call that the old North Ward. But when you're on Wellington, in and around Weber, taking it to King, that's an older area of Kitchener. But let me tell you, Wellington Street was no picnic either. Just an absolute mess. And you can't do anything to avoid them. There are so many potholes, or the road is so much like a corduroy road that you can't possibly avoid the potholes. So the best most of us can do on any given day is slow down just enough so that the impact of going through or over those potholes is not as great as it might otherwise be, because you know that you can do some pretty serious damage to your vehicle when it comes to that. So again, if you want to participate in the Worst Roads campaign, visit CAAWorstRoads.com. The CAA says this annual campaign helps them identify 4 municipalities that work needs to be done, and this might accelerate the timeline of that work getting done. I don't know. I think municipalities know pretty darn well where the problems are. I'm just not sure we're doing enough to keep up with them, because, again, it's just in so many places, it seems to me, the potholes are beyond ridiculous. And I don't think it was a particularly harsh winter for that. We always have the freeze-thaw cycle, which is what leads us to what we're doing. And I know there's been technology, and I'm not sure why we don't use it more, to hot patch these potholes and do some more work with the asphalt that way. I'm no expert. I'm no engineer, so I'm not going to claim to know better. I just get the sincere sense that we have let this go for too long, and it's going to be rather nightmarish to try to catch up. When this first campaign first started, and I thought of worst roads in the region, I thought mostly of the more congested roads. Like, I have a hard time, and if I can avoid it, I will. Fairway Road. It's so tough around the mall and around Best Buy, and lots of great reasons to be there. I will always try to find a different way to get to Fairway Road or the business I want to visit on Fairway Road, and spend as little time on Fairway as I possibly can. Same with Hespeler Road through Cambridge. I think that's another real tough one. So congested, so many lights. But now we've gone from that and just the general frustration of getting around to the potholes. It is absolutely pothole season, And boy, oh boy, they will rattle the fillings in your teeth if you're not careful. The CAA Worst Roads campaign up again for another year. CAAWorstRoads.com if you want to vote for a road that you travel on a regular basis. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. See, we've all got them, don't we? Our own personal worst roads in the region. Russell's email to Mike at 570news.com. Try River Road between Victoria and Ottawa. Wait. River Road, Victoria. Oh, yeah, I got you. That's a long way to go. And then King Street from Maple Grove to the Highway 8 off-ramp, says Russell via email. Craig to Mike at 570news.com. How about Queen from Weber to Lancaster, right in front of our crown jewel of a central library? Try driving down that one. Sometimes I'm convinced the potholes are just there so we don't exceed 25 kilometers per hour. Maybe you've got a worst road of your own you would like to nominate. Maybe you want to talk more about our chances should the U.S. invade us militarily. Maybe you want to talk about that poll this morning that shows the Liberals with a decided advantage, but this is only the third day, second full of the election campaign. Whatever's on your mind, get it off your mind and onto the air. The Talkback Hour begins right after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
Well, I gotta say, I'll hand it to you, Corey, who sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. I haven't heard this one before, so it's new to me, and it's very good. Corey writes, "Hi, Mike, just listening to your conversations about the worst roads, and I can't help but think of the irony that they demand us to have cars that are roadworthy, but they can't make their roads car-worthy." Well played, sir. And not all that far off the mark, the way things are going around here this spring, eh? CAA Worst Roads campaign is underway again. You can nominate one at CAAWorstRoads.com. I wish there was a place we could go to nominate the most egregious foul of election etiquette. Can I call it that? I just continue to be disappointed about what Mike brought to our attention on the Talkback Hour yesterday. Mike is a member of the Waterloo Conservative Association, and he was behind a candidate who had been working for a couple of years to secure the nomination in the next federal election, because that's kind of what you do. Just like any line of work, you pay your dues, right? And Val Nieckman felt as though he did that. He ran the Riding Association. He prepared to run as a nominee, and then the Conservative Party parachuted in somebody who, ironically, had just lost the nomination in Kitchener-Conestoga. So they decide, well, you couldn't win the nomination there. We're just going to plop you in here, and we're going to move Val Nieckman out of the way. The party obviously has a reason for doing that, whether they think the person they plopped in there has a better chance of winning, or the person they plopped in there is somehow owed a reward for the effort they've put in for the party over the years. I don't know, but it's not right. The riding associations on the ground should be finding the local candidates to run for the party. That's the way it's supposed to work. And when you circumvent that process, you are, in my opinion, circumventing democracy. And it's not just the Conservatives that do that. It's the Conservatives in this case. This happens with every party in ridings across the country. And it ain't cool. It ain't cool from where I'm sitting. Let's get to the phones and hear from you on the Talkback Hour. Sean, start us off.
Hey, Mike, how are you? I got a quick question for you. I was talking to you earlier. Can I get the name of the renovations people that you talked about? Or I didn't get the address or name or anything.
They are on Traynor Avenue in Kitchener. That's the building they live in. But the organization you're looking for, Sean, is called Acorn. Just look up Acorn, and that will be what you're looking for. That is the group that successfully fought back against a renoviction in Kitchener. They've got chapters around the province right now. Jersey Bill, over to you. Good afternoon. Oh, Jersey Bill, come on. Jersey Bill does this to me from time to time. He puts me on a speaker phone of some kind, or he puts himself on mute or something. Jersey Bill will call back, and I will give him an earful when he can hear me, or the other way around. He does this to me from time to time. Tell you, you call me, be ready to talk. Bob, how about you? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I got two things, and one's got nothing to do with each other.
Sorry, Bob, I'm having trouble with your phone now. You've got two things, and one has nothing to do with what?
They don't have anything to do with each other.
Okay, that's fine. Two different thoughts from Bob. Let's go.
Okay, I hope the Blue Jay fans at the opening game do not boo the American anthem, because most of your players are American. And it's not their problem that Trump's doing this.
Okay.
And number two, my Pierre doesn't have his security clearance.
I'm sorry, somebody's security clearance?
Yeah, Pierre?
Pierre Poilievre, he does not have security clearance. That's right.
Yeah. You know why?
I don't know why, Bob. Do you know why?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to be like his idol, Sergeant Schultz.
Who?
Sergeant Schultz.
Who's Sergeant Schultz?
Hogan's Heroes. You never watched that when you were a kid?
I did not.
Oh.
Okay. And how is Sergeant...
I see nothing, I know nothing.
Okay. I get you. Okay. Bob, Bob's funny. Bob's funniest when he thinks he's being funny. He was waiting for the punchline. I get it. I see nothing. I hear nothing. The goggles, they do nothing. Because Bob brought it up, I would just like to take this opportunity to remind you. First, I'll go back about a week when I had the absolute pleasure and privilege of being at the Toronto Maple Leafs game. Haven't seen a Leafs game in decades, and a good friend, he's such a great guy, reached out and offered me the chance to come on his tickets. I'm like, yes, I will go. And unbeknownst to me, 3 members of the Leafs starting lineup that night against Colorado, American-born players. I knew Austin Matthews was from Arizona. I did not know that Matthew Nyes was. I probably should know that as a Leafs fan. But anyway, Matthew Nyes in the starting lineup, also from Arizona. And Joseph Wall in goal, a native of St. Louis, Missouri. So 3 of the 6 players, goalie plus 5 skaters, 3 of the 6 on the ice for the Leafs to start the game in Toronto at Scotiabank Arena. And then their anthem starts, and the fans in Toronto boo it. Half of your starting lineup is from the United States, and the fans booed the anthem. Can we not? Just not. I know it might make you feel better for a minute, but think about that. Come on with your coming on. Your quarrel is not with them, especially when they're playing for your team. Your quarrel is with the president. Find another way. Go shop for some French's ketchup or something, okay? Please. So I bring this up because not only that Bob just did, but also the Kitchener Rangers are going to play the Flint Firebirds in the first round. Game 1 is Friday night in Kitchener. Do not boo the U.S. anthem when it is performed at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium on Friday night, okay? Do not do it. Please, thank you, amen. This is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is your hour to talk back, so I just answer the phone and listen. And we'll go back to the phones for Jersey Bill. I told you he'd call back. Now, Billy, what did you do to me before?
I must have hit the wrong... I was trying to take you off speaker, and it just died on me. So,
Billy, just give me the handset, baby. Use the handset, baby. Let's go.
I got you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, you've mentioned... You've thought in the past that I was a dual citizen. I'm not. I'm a Canadian resident. I'm only a U.S. citizen.
Oh, okay.
but I do get a check every month from the DOD because I'm an Army retiree. So if the unfortunate thing happens and we see U.S. troops crossing the border, I don't know. I guess I would have to. I wouldn't want to think that I had dual loyalties, but I would like to think that maybe I could stand in the way and be a kind of local mediator. Though, unfortunately, if tensions really rise, I might get shot at from both sides.
That would be the concern. Yes.
Yes, and and it's really unfortunate. I sort of wonder what's going to happen once the Prime Minister is in place after the election. Will there be a cooling off period while the U.S. administration gets to know the next government in place, or will this craziness just continue on? And just what Daniel Smith said was sort of ridiculous. That don't interfere in the election by not putting forth the tariffs. Wait till after the election. I mean, what does that accomplish? And it's so it makes Canada look weak. And besides that, it just adds to the confusion which we get enough of from Donald Trump himself.
Billy, appreciate the call. We certainly do get enough confusion from Donald Trump himself because I'm not sure that Donald Trump has all of his faculties assembled right now. On the Danielle Smith front, I don't know, what a premier kind of inserting herself into the federal election. Donald Trump has already said that he thinks a Liberal government in Canada would be easier to deal with. I guess it depends on how you want to take that. Easier to deal with in terms of the relationship would be better, or easier to deal with in that, so if the relationship were to be better, then Canadians might think, oh, well, that's the way we should go. Or does it mean easier to deal with insofar as I, Donald Trump, will get my way? And then Canadians might think, well, we should vote for a Conservative then because we need somebody to be tough against Donald Trump. It is, here's what I would love to see. I would love to see us turn out in huge numbers, which we have not done. Last federal election was somewhere in the 60s, 62, 63%. Forgive me, I forget. But let's get out there and really exercise our franchise this time around, okay? And pick the person that we think best represents or gives us the best vision for our country. Let's talk about this country. And for the love of all things holy, can somebody please get elected to office that knows how to balance a budget? I would love to see a budget get balanced. If it's not too much trouble, if you don't mind too much. But can we just look for and then vote for in strong numbers? Let's have our voice heard. This is a really big moment in our country's history. Let's make sure we participate in this moment. Find the person that will lead us into the next 4 years and beyond, into this brave new world we're entering as a young country. Walter, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Yeah, I don't know how anybody can believe anything that comes out of Trump's mouth. I mean, maybe he's using reverse psychology on us up here, saying that, I would rather have to deal with a Liberal so that we'll vote Liberal, so that he won't have to deal with Polyev. But who knows what his motive is? I mean, like after the fiasco yesterday, I mean, how can he be trusted for anything? You know, it's mind-boggling how anybody can take his word for anything at all whatsoever.
Yeah, yesterday was like Liberty Day, right? April 2nd, maybe tariffs, maybe not tariffs.
No. I mean, what happened with his war plans?
With his war plans?
Oh, yeah, but you haven't heard about that, where they got leaked out?
I did not.
Yeah. His war plans for over in Yemen inadvertently got leaked out to some reporter, or I'm sorry, the editor at the Atlantic.
Oh, yes. I did. Yeah, I did hear that.
Mike. Okay. You had me worried there, Mike. You're usually up on all this stuff.
So I'm sorry. Yes, I got you. The Atlantic is the trigger.
Yeah. So I mean, like, What kind of a fool would do that? And then they all come out and they say, everything's okay. I mean, could you imagine if that would have happened to Biden? We wouldn't hear, we would never hear the end of it.
Well, let's not forget that we're not exactly dealing with somebody that's a lot younger than the previous president.
Well, yeah, but I agree with you. I think the guy has serious mental problems. And, you can say what you want about him, but, I mean, just from what I've observed in the last number of years and his comments, and he has a serious mental problem, that man.
All right, Walter. Point taken. And you're concerned about the mental well-being of the President of the United States. Just depends which way the wind is blowing, I suppose. Your Talkback Hour continues here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. And right back to the phones on a busy Talkback Hour. Mike, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'd like to talk about the Kevin O'Leary, Daniel Smith stuff. I've seen on social media and including on Fox News that Kevin O'Leary's on there all the time saying that he's going to negotiate a deal for Canada. So my first thing to Mr. Wonderful is, Mr. Wonderful, who elected you? I don't think he should be going in and chirping with Trump because he's not a member of the Canadian government. He doesn't live in Canada, and he needs to keep his yap shut. The other person I would like to talk about is Daniel Smith. I think she's playing a very dangerous game, Mike, with the Alberta separatists. She is trying to keep her province and the oil flowing, which I understand. But also, some of our Liberal friends who didn't want to build pipelines, didn't want to support our European allies, have some accountability here and to blame. If Daniel Smith and the Albertans could ship their gas and oil to Europe or out to Asia, we wouldn't have this problem right now. And that rests solely at the lap of the Liberals right now, Mike. That's my thoughts.
All right, Mike, appreciate the call. We'll go next to Kyle. Kyle, you're on the Talkback Hour.
It's nice to see that the leaders that want to actually fight or run for our country know French and English and are not afraid to go to a debate. Wait, hold on a second. Oh, no, Mark Carney, he doesn't want to go in the French debate. I'm sorry, so they canceled it because of him.
Chapeau.
I forgot about that.
Chapeau. I would feel as afraid as he is. His French is terrible and mine's even worse.
Yeah, but you know what? Those are the two official languages of our country.
You're right. No, you're 100% right, Kyle.
Right, and the other thing I want to say is... you know what? It's not the same Liberal, or it's not a different Liberal Party. It's the same Liberal Party. 3 of the cabinet members are from the previous Trudeau government. Carney was the biggest advocate, hugest advocate for the carbon tax, and now he's getting rid of it. Why don't they just rename the Liberal Party? I'm just going to copy everything Pierre Poilievre does and just put it into my platform, and then that way I'll just buy votes from Canada. Like, it's ridiculous, Mike. But that's my rant. I just want to let you know that. But yeah, I thought I'd just bring that up. Thanks, my friend. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. I just want to be clear on that. So TVA in Quebec, and David Drew and I talked about this yesterday, is holding a kind of pay-for-play debate. You have to put up $75,000 to participate and cover the cost, et cetera. That's the one that Mark Carney originally said he would participate in and then backed out of. There will still be the official, if you will, leaders' debates in both English and French. And yes, Liberal leader Mark Carney will participate in that official leaders debate or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, that's just to be clear on it. But I'm with you, Kyle. Clearly, the man doesn't trust his French enough. And I guess I wouldn't either if I were him. But it sort of comes as a prerequisite for the job. Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV. If you would like to join the Talkback Hour, you can do that. You're welcome here. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. And pro tip for you, if you try calling and that line doesn't work, try one of the other lines. It's a good way to get around it because they all work. Even the 1-800 number will work locally. Back to the phones. Claire, good afternoon.
Yeah, Yeah. I know we're going to have this election. I hope everyone gets out and vote because this is about Canada here. So, but I don't trust Trump whatsoever. I don't trust him as far as I can throw him. I don't trust Paulette as far as I can throw him, and I don't trust Mark Carney at all either. So when we vote, I hope we get a prime minister that we can really trust out there.
Well, if you don't trust them now, what makes you think you're going to trust them when they get elected?
I don't know. I hope we can get someone that we can really trust, and I don't know who that is. But I'm thinking, and like people said, I think if we can get maybe a liberal one in, I think that would be good.
So that's Mark Carney, but you just said you didn't trust him. So what's it?
I think I could if I can get used to him.
Okay, fair enough. So you'll warm up to him, but Claire's leaning liberal with the election 33 days away. Tom, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Why do you cut me off all the time when I try to say something? And then Kyle and Jason, the radio station that you're calling, they can do it. I mean, all I did was say that we need policy for the immigration.
Okay,
Can't afford it anymore.
But you said it. So what more do you want me to wait for? I remember you saying that. You said that yesterday. Okay, so what else did you want to say?
Well, the other thing is all this international interference is all garbage. There's nothing there.
There's no interference?
The government itself, both provincial and nationally, they ruined the country because they didn't expect any other trading nation. So,
but hang on, Tom, hang on. You're mixing up our lack of diversity in trade with foreign interference in our leadership campaigns. Those are two different things.
That's right.
Okay, well then
it's garbage. There's no interference.
You don't believe our spy agency?
No.
Okay,
I mean, you can't be this stupid. Nobody's going to interfere in Canada.
Really?
They've done enough damage themselves.
Okay.
We don't have any other trading partners, so this is what they have to do.
I get you, Tom. So Tom says we are such a mess here in Canada that nobody would possibly want to interfere with the goings-on around here. Fair enough. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. To the not Tom, but the caller before him. And Farwell, we trust. I think you should run for prime minister.
Okay.
Put that on our money bills. Anyway,
as long as we had money, I'd be happy.
Like Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, that's right.
I think Uncle Donald down the States, he's clearly unhinged. And I don't think he's afraid of Pierre Poilievre. I don't think he's, I don't think the wet spot's going down his leg in fear. So, but I think I might have missed earlier. Did someone call saying about the parachuted candidate for Oxford County in the last by-election?
Yes. Somebody emailed about that and said there was somebody parachuted in because they were a party loyalist who helped Poilievre, so that was the reward, and they would have elected a skunk in Oxford County.
Yes, that's correct, because that was the by-election, because the previous member for Oxford, he resigned his seat. He'd been there for many, many years. I think it was, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was due to health reasons. And he wanted his daughter to run for the Conservative Party. So they parachuted this guy in from the Toronto area. And you know what? Even though the previous member for the Conservative Party, he petitioned for the Liberal guy, because he got mad because that guy got parachuted in when he wanted his daughter to run. And guess what? The Conservative guy that was parachuted in still skunked the Liberal guy. It wasn't even close. So what does that tell you, Mike? What is that? Why would I go out and vote if I already know who's going to win in Oxford County?
Fair point.
Okay, Mike, thanks. That's all I just wanted to make sure I heard correct.
All right, Terry, thanks for the call. You did indeed hear correct. Jason, good afternoon. Jason. All right, Jason. That's my favorite calls. Again, I'll say, you called me. Please, when I answer the call, be ready to talk. Don't go to the drive-thru. Dallas, you're always ready to talk.
Yes, sir, I am.
Yes, sir, you are. What's on your mind today?
Well, as far as the parachuting of incumbents or candidates, I should say, I don't believe in that one little bit. I think you should live in the riding of what you're running for. And that's all I'm going to say about that part. One thing I did want to touch on was, what was that Mrs. name that you had on, the political scientist?
Aisha Ahmad from the University of Toronto.
I agreed with everything she said. And I'll say that for one simple reason. 1812, even though it wasn't the, not necessarily the Canadian military that took care of it, but there was an uprising. They tried and they lost. If they try to come over again, well, they're going to lose again. Simple as that.
All right, Dallas, I appreciate the call. I will say that even though I laughed at the way he phrased it, I thought Steve made a pretty good point before. We're not the same people we were 200 years ago. We might be a wee bit more tender. However, just something else that popped in my head when Dallas mentioned living where you're running. And this is like, I'm not trying to be unkind. I'm asking a legitimate question here. Where does Mark Carney live? I know he's running in Ottawa, and he's got roots in Edmonton, and he keeps skating with the Edmonton Oilers, and that's where he launched his leadership campaign. Where does Mark Carney live? Does he have I'm sure he has a house. He probably has several. Where? Where are they? I'm legitimate, honest, genuine question. Where does the leader of the Liberal Party live? Your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every day from noon until 1, we give you the chance to talk back, and I think you like it. You really, really like it. Our phone lines are busy. I love that. Bob, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. When Stephen Harper first ran, he could not speak French, and it didn't seem to bother the Conservatives.
Oh, well, that's good then. That's a good news story for the Federal Liberal Party and their leader who speaks poor French. So there you go. Thanks for that, Bob. That's an interesting story coming from Liberal Bob. Ernie, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. I know you touched on it yesterday a bit about Carney not having to disclose his conflicts or his investments, all the money he has.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm concerned about that because I think is it 120 days or 120 days that he's got to bring it all forward, and the campaign will be over by then. So we could have an elected prime minister whose assets and potential conflicts associated with those assets are unbeknownst to us. I'm not a fan.
The reason I'm asking and just bringing this up here today, and so what he said, I don't know. We'll have to find the validity of it and everything. But apparently in October, he met with the deputy director of the People's Bank of China. And he secured a $250 million loan for Brookfield. So should we put a couple of shekels into the Brookfield investment there?
I don't think I have enough shekels to get a share in Brookfield, if that's what you mean.
But, I mean, doesn't that seem a little bit of a conflict of interest there if you're the prime minister of the country?
I don't know the origins of this story, Ernie, and I'm sorry that I don't. I'll look into it further. But that would be a very strange time. Well, but he's not with Brookfield anymore, right? So.
Well, that's true. It's just his brother running it. I get it. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, Ernie. Thanks for the call. Well, you can tell there's an election campaign underway. Chris, good afternoon.
Yeah, I'm going to switch gears here for a minute, if that's okay.
Of course.
I'm commenting on the story here about Victoria Common. A small little area in the middle of Kitchener, between Margaret Ave, St. Ledger, Blucher Street, and Louisa Street.
Yeah.
Many years ago, they got a zone change application approved to put in a small subdivision. So there's a middle part in there they haven't developed. And I hear that they want to, in this middle part, they want to put 3 towers in there. One's 30-story plus. Basically, 2 blocks as a crow flies from Barta Park do we have to give everybody a building permit to do this kind of stuff? Like, do we really want to be a Mississauga here? Those townhouses, and it was agreed on a 12-story limit when the 6 and 4 story buildings went in with some townhouses. Now they're going to another zone change, and they want to build the sky's the limit.
Chris, I couldn't agree more. I brought this up at the beginning of the show last week because the public meeting is tonight, right?
Yeah, it's online.
It's on. I know.
What are they scared of?
I know.
I got a hold of my counselor, Councillor Stretch, and said, why don't we have it at the Bruddup Center or at the City Hall?
Yeah.
Like, what are they scared of? They want to face people. I don't. You know how many people are intimidated and don't like to go online in front of a screen?
Here's the thing, Chris, and what I brought up when I mentioned this, because you're absolutely right. There's 6-story. There were going to be 6-story max buildings in that development, and then it was going to be 12, and now it's going to be 20 plus. And
it was good. It is 6 and 4.
It is 6 and 4 now, right?
Yes,
max was
12.
Right.
They want to change it.
Now we're going 20 plus, but those now you're talking about the 3 towers at Victoria Commons in the area you just talked about. Don't forget, and this is what I brought up when I mentioned it on the show last week, at Victoria and Margaret, in and around where that LA Fitness is right now. Or I think they've already changed it over to Grand River Rocks. But that corner is getting 2 or 3. Also, I think one of them is going to be 40 stories there. So
yes, I know.
Yeah.
I lived in that area all my life.
Okay,
since
well,
the early 60s. I've seen the panel veneer burn. So I used to play in that field there when I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. So I know the history of that area very well. It used to be called One Adam Place because, believe it or not, between that church, the Apostolic Church, and the house there, that road that goes into the parking lot is actually a through street called Adam Street that goes between Margaret and St. Ledger, and something happened there. I don't know who greased whose palms, but they didn't, when the original subdivision went in there, the church did not want the subdivision to go as far as exiting goes out there beside their church. So both the exits go right on St. Ledger, and if we build this, come on. I mean, we got to be up in arms about this some way. 12 stories is enough. All
right, Chris. Listen, I appreciate the call. I get you. And I don't know. I don't know what to say. Because I feel, and I always check myself. Because like Chris said, he grew up in this area. I grew up in this town my whole life. And I look around it now sometimes. And I said this to a city councillor when I was in downtown Kitchener a couple of years ago. I said, I feel claustrophobic sometimes. And all of the buildings aren't even up yet. But I feel claustrophobic sometimes. Change is hard. But man, oh man, that's why I brought that up with the Victoria Commons and Victoria and Margaret. 2 areas where you're going to see 5 towers, 30 plus stories. Like it's crazy how many are going up there. And then I told you this morning on the Farwell Show 5 at the beginning of the show about the towers for the corner of Weber and Bridgeport. And you can think of that as, a pretty commercialized area, but there are quiet little neighborhoods just off Weber Street as you get to Bridgeport. And we're talking 3 towers, 20 plus stories, well above the original height limitations in that zoning, well above the density. There's going to be more than 600 units in there. And we don't know all of the details, but there's been a settlement reached, and it's going to be discussed at a provincial hearing next Thursday. We're just up and away. Up and away. And just back to Ernie's call earlier about Brookfield and the loan from the Bank of China. Western Standard's reporting it. I would not put a lot of stock in that. I'm sorry, Western Standard, but I think we all know what you're about. This is the Mike Farwell Show, or not about, and that's real news, I'm afraid. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Thank you, Anissa, for the email to Mike at 570news.com. Mark Carney lives in the Rockcliffe Park area of Ottawa. Now, I did not know that's where he was living or had purchased a home. And Aaron's email to Mike at 570news.com with regard to the Victoria and Margaret conversation and the Victoria Commons conversation and the number of tall towers going up in small geographic areas, because we have to grow up, not out, right? Aaron's email says, have you tried moving outside the city? Cities change, more people, more houses needed, and jobs are created. I get it. And like I said, I struggle with the whole idea because I know change is hard. And when you watch the town you grew up in become something completely other than a town, it is tough. And I'm just admitting to struggling with it. But no, I'm not going to try moving out of the city, not just yet. So you can't get rid of me that easily. But I do find it a little bit uncomfortable in places because it's just that much different. But we'll just see how it goes from there. Rudy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. About the tall buildings, as we know, unfortunately, if the city turns it down, they go to the Ontario Municipal Board, and they will say yes because Ford wants people to build.
Rudy, you're not wrong, and I think the statistic that's been going around for a while is 97%. It's definitely north of 95% of the proposals that go to the Ontario Land Tribunal, the OLT, which is the new name for the OMB, the Ontario Municipal Board. The developer wins like 97% of the time. So why even fight it, right? Grant, you get the last word today. Got about 30 seconds.
All right. Yeah, you were talking about the interference intelligence. Does that same as the drones and all that kind of stuff?
No.
Okay, yeah. I wouldn't worry about it because, one, I don't really give a darn if they watch me watching TV.
Yeah, well,
supper.
Yeah, I get it. And that's part of the problem, right? It's not about people surveilling you, and we should be concerned about that, just for the record. However, what we're talking about is interference in our leadership campaigns and our elections by foreign actors who would have a vested interest in the outcome of those elections, and that should concern us very much indeed. All right, just like that, we're out of time for another day. Jen Tan is our board operator. Rob Snow, and Now You Know, coming up, taking you through until 3 this afternoon. My name is Mike Farwell.